It will not be about me this time. We have a very special guest today, Drew from the United States, directly from there. Unfortunately, he couldn't come here in person, but thanks to the technology, he is with us, and he has a little preview from this little camera. So he, as you can see here, he can see us. If you could make a big applause for him to just I hope you were able to hear that. Let me give 2 words introduction. Drew represents KLN family brands. They are the first customer, external customer, who decided to use Novacura Flow Connect, who did the entire migration to Novacura Flow Connect, and they are now there up and running. They must be brave, I think. Drew, I think it's better if you introduce yourself and your company. So yeah, take your time.
Thank you, Lucas, and thank you everybody there for the opportunity to present today. We're very excited when we were approached about the opportunity to be one of the first customers to move to Flow Connect. So I'll just kind of jump into it. So my name is Drew Johnson. I'm the applications manager for a company called KLN Family Brands. We are located in Minnesota, kind of right in the middle of the United States. I'm not sure it's anything to brag about, but we live in a state where I swear we get winter about 10 months out of the year. So it's pretty cold where we live, but it's also a pretty nice place for a couple months during the summer. So about our company, like I said, work for KLN Family Brands. We're a family-owned company located in Minnesota. We have 4 subsidiary companies that we manufacture human and pet food products out of. You'd be surprised at some of the looks that we get when we tell people we manufacture human and pet food products. So make sure to say that they're done in different facilities. Between our 5 companies, the 4 child companies in KLN, we consist of over 900 employees in 2 different cities, both located in Minnesota. Fairly small towns, each one of them. Perham is where I'm from, and that's kind of our headquarters. You can see on the picture on the bottom left there with the Nutrisource Tower, that's kind of the skyline of Perham. Our population is about 3,500 people. And then we also have 1 facility that's been running for about 3 years, about 2.5, 3 hours just to the south of us, also located in Minnesota. That's our Tuffy Street facility, kind of in the middle there. And that QR code, that'll kind of take you to our website to learn a little more about our company. So here's just some screenshots of our facility. The top left there is Kenny's Candy and Confections. That's where we make the licorice and then seasoned and enrolled popcorn. So we have some kind of fun flavors. We have jalapeno and blue cheese popcorn. We have some sour licorice, we have red licorice, and that's distributed primarily across the United States and in Canada. Tuffy's Pet Foods, our biggest brand is Nutrisource, and that's distributed around the world. So we do have some distribution points in Europe, some in China, obviously the United States, Mexico, Canada. You can kind of see the top right picture there. That's a picture of our brand and our facility. Tuffy's Pet Treats and Cans, that's the one that I mentioned that is a few hours south of us. And we produce dog and cat treats and then some canned pet food products. And then our newest business venture is called The Spot. That's kind of a charity initiative for us. We offer training for dogs that will aid veterans and first responders. And then we also provide daycare, boarding, grooming, and some veterinarian services for pets in the community. So a little bit about our IT team. We partnered with a company called IFS for our ERP solution about 5 years ago. It's used in every corner of the business, from procurement to scheduling. We ship customer orders. We do all of our finances in there, pretty much everything in between. In 5 years post go live, we performed about 36 million inventory transactions for all areas of the business. We came from a legacy ERP that was kind of a text-based command line interface. So moving to IFS, which is kind of a nice GUI interface, was a big change for us. So with that change, we were able to kind of begin exploring partnerships with other modern applications. And we attended the IFS user conference. We've attended them frequently since we partnered with IFS. But we first discovered Novacura while we attended a conference in Boston in October of 2019. Saw a demo of some of the purchasing stuff. It was an app where they would take a picture of a purchased part, and then it would analyze and tell you whether you're receiving the correct part or not. And then we also saw a demo for a travel and expense app. So that was really what caught our attention. That helped us replace a legacy web application where users would have to VPN into our site. Then they would have to go to a web page, log in, scan and attach receipts via a web portal, and it was just very clunky. So the app that Novacura helped us develop, and maybe some of you have used it, where you just take out your mobile device, take a picture of your receipt, and then it uses some form recognition technology to pull off the date, the merchant, the amount. And we tied that right in with IFS via some of their APIs. So that's the most heavily used app. We have our entire sales team using it, a lot of our office staff. We have about 60 users that'll use that on a daily or a weekly basis. And so clearly that's still used today, but we've also expanded to other areas of the business, the finance team, the sales team, even research and development. And a little bit later on, I'll talk about how we've started to roll this out to now that we're on Flow Connect, to some of our third-party vendors. People that aren't even our employees are able to use Connect to interact directly with our ERP and create some inventory transactions for us. So like I said, we have about 65 weekly users that were using 20 different flows when we were in Flow 6 that interacted directly with IFS via APIs, some others that use some form recognition and AI OCR technology. So the end of January, early February this year, we were reached out to by the Novacura team, and they kind of asked, hey, would you guys be interested in being one of our first customers to move to Flow Connect? And I had actually watched a video from this conference, I believe, from last year, where it was sort of the concept was rolled out. So we analyzed our current usage internally. We knew that we were about to roll out some apps that were going to be more widely used. So we decided in February that this was a good time to begin the project. So at the time, that was the least that we were going to be using Flow, because since then we've only added more users to our platform and have utilized it a little bit more. So weekly usage less than it is now, but we had plans to expand our offerings to many different areas of the business, which we have in just the 7 months since we went live. So we developed a project plan and a timeline with the Novacura team, and we kicked that off in February. So Novacura, they played a big role, which was part of the project plan. They gave us some expertise. We had some admin training. We had an hour and a half or 2 hour course, just how to navigate, how to use the new Flow Hub, which replaced the old Flow Studio. And then also part of the project was for the Novacura team to uplift the applications that they had developed for us. So that did not include anything that we had developed internally. So as with anything, it's helpful to have a working example, right? So as Novacura lifted our application, we were able to use what they had lifted and some of the changes that they had made for us to apply those to the applications that we were going to be responsible for. The Cloud Designer is similar to how it was in Flow 6, but it's different enough that it was nice to have something in there that we could pull up, we could debug, and we could also use as kind of a jumping off point as we made the changes to our applications. So it's a fairly simple process to migrate the apps. We just had to export them from Classic and then import them into Connect. You do need to remap any connectors. So we found it helpful to name them the same or similar. So for example, we had IFS Apps 10 Oracle in Flow 6. We called it IFS Apps 10 in Flow Connect. So when you import that transaction, you'll get a pop-up box. If the connector names are the same, it'll say, here's what it is from the old Flow 6 transaction. Here's what it is in the connect transaction, and it would map them accordingly. Otherwise, it gave you a drop down to select from. So you have to just kind of remap those as you import your transactions. You do need to invite all users to the new platform. You can invite multiple users at once, so there's no need to do one at a time. But you do have the ability to grant user group access to a user, which gives them rights to view different application packages. One thing that was important for us was the option to integrate with our Azure Active Directory. So you no longer need there's no longer a need for a separate username and password, which you guys are just like everybody else, right? The last thing you need is one more username and one more password to try and keep track of. So that was really important for us and for our users to be able to just tie that in with everything that they're already using on a daily basis. And then the other thing we like, there's no longer a need to approve new devices because if you tie in with Azure AD, it will use your multi-factor authentication if that's set up. So that was one thing that was really beneficial to us. We have with 65 plus users, we'd have every couple of weeks, at least somebody would have a new device that they would need approved. And then they're waiting on us before they can actually start transacting in Novacura. So the need to no longer approve new devices, that was an important one for us. And then menus are replaced with application packages. So it's somewhat similar, but you'll grant an access package, an application package to a user group. And then a user group will be assigned to a user, which, as I mentioned, you can assign a group or groups to users as you invite them to the system. So as soon as they receive their registration link and they register, create their account, they already have access to anything that they'll need as soon as they're logged in. So kind of our preparation for go live, which was part of the plan that we had developed. 2 weeks prior to go live, we sent an email to all active Flow 6 users, the legacy platform, just to tell them kind of what to expect, what's happening, because obviously everything was kind of going on in the background as far as us lifting our transactions, doing our testing and things like that. So once we felt good about it, we sent them an email, prepared them for a registration email, and that would give them instructions on how to register. Like everybody, I'm sure you guys are all aware of, cybersecurity and things like that. So we're on very high alert here at KLN. So even with the warning that a registration email was coming, we still had a lot of them reported as a phish email. So we had to say, no, it's valid. That was kind of the reason for us sending the email ahead of time to warn them that it was coming. But we just had to kind of turn that back around to them and say, nope, this is your registration email. Go ahead, click on it. It's safe, and all that. So we highlighted some of the changes in that email of what to expect. So we told them they can use their Microsoft credentials. They would have to download a new mobile app. They would have to go to a new URL for the new interface. Obviously, as everything's pointed at the new server. And then the last thing we did was we included some work instructions to guide them through some of their most frequently used applications, and then help them kind of walk them through the changes. The user interface is different. The menu and navigation is a little bit different with the application packages. So we just wanted to give them as many tools as possible ahead of time to try and limit some of the calls that we would get post go live. So 1 week prior to our targeted go live, our users received that registration email with the option to begin using the new platform in beta. And we actually had pretty good adoption. We had about 60% of our users register within the first week. And then on the go live date, we turned off all Flow 6 users, and that's where the other 40% came in. So on the go live date, after we disabled their Flow 6 users, we resent the registration email to the users that hadn't signed in yet, just as a kind of a reminder from them. And we did have, like I said, the remaining 40. Well, there's a couple that were stragglers, but for the most part, all of our users were registered prior to or on the go live date. So here's a little bit about our timeline. In February, we signed our contracts and kicked off the project. And that was kind of the end of February. So then March, we did our Flow Hub admin training and worked on getting our our connector set up, the agents installed on the on some of our local servers, because like our ERP database server is not exposed to the public, so we had to use the Novacura agent to we put the agent on our local server, connected it out to the web, and that's how the two were able to talk. Then March, April, we did our application migration and our testing internally. And then that May 20th, so our target go live was actually May 29th, and our actual go live was the 27th. So we stayed on target with our initial timeline. But this May 20th, that was the 1 week prior to where all of our users received the invite to Flow Connect. And then the following week, the 27th, all the users were live on the new platform, and the Flow 6 user accounts were disabled. June, we followed that up with the post go live support. We received very few calls. I think our users were pretty well prepared as far as the emails that we had sent them, helping them get registered. It helped again that the Azure AD was kind of tied in with everything, so that they didn't have to have us reset a password, ask us for a username, anything like that. And then we did receive top-notch support from Novacura. We did have a couple bugs that we had not discovered during testing, that as we rolled it out to the wider user group, they were able to uncover those for us. So we would reach out to Novacura, and within minutes we'd get a response, and they would be working on something. And then finally, July 12th, our Flow 6 server was turned off, and we had 100% adoption rate with Flow Connect. So all of our users had moved off of Flow 6 and begun using the new platform. So here's a couple of screenshots of Flow in use on the left side, and you guys are probably familiar with that. That's the menu from Flow 6 from the mobile app. The one in the middle here would be kind of a similar menu, you know, more icons, nicer colors, just to kind of make things stand out a bit. And then the far right here, this would be the applications inside of the application package. So the top one in the middle is our expense. You can see there's 4 applications. And then on the right side, there's those 4 applications to choose from. They do still have the ability for inbox or seated workflows, which we find very helpful, especially for travel and expense, just as a to-do list, right? If you're in the middle of an expense sheet, or you need to go confirm one so that you get paid on it, you're able to still use inboxes to make those items kind of stand out and have it be part of your workflow. Here's just a couple more screenshots. Just it looks a lot more modern, a lot nicer in Flow Connect, in my opinion. Yeah, another example of our travel and expense application and what it would look like on the UI from a mobile app perspective. This is inside of the Flow Hub. So on the top left here, you can see here's a list of some of our users. And then I've opened one of them up and shown you how we've granted some user groups to a particular user. And these were ones that were actually granted at the time that we created the user. And then the bottom right here is a list of all the different user groups that we have set up, with a count of each user that's in them. So it's kind of nice functionality. You pull up the user group and you can see the users that are in that group, and then the application packages assigned to that user group, which is here how you would set those up. So I'm inside of my expense application package. I go to share this, and it'll show me a list of end user groups that we have, and then I can choose to grant test or production environments for each of those user groups. So setting your permissions is fairly simple once you have all of your user groups set up and your users inside of those user groups. This is just an example of the connectors all located in one spot. One of my favorite things about Flow Connect is how everything is all in one hub, fairly easy to find for each environment. With Flow 6, there's a bit of jumping back and forth between test and prod. And here you can see your connectors, for example. You just have one connector name and your development, test, and prod environments along the top, where you can just set each of those up fairly easily. And you can have different connection strings. So our database for our ERP, for example, for IFS. We have our prod URL and credentials, and then development and test all in the same spot. So easy to access, easy to change. And then finally, one last screenshot from the Flow Hub is deployments. So like I said, everything's all in one environment. So one environment. So one of my favorite features is the app deployment process. Flow 6 made it nice where you could publish it and then you could subscribe or share it and then subscribe from production. So it's fairly easy to move deployed versions back and forth from environment to environment. But here it's all right on one screen. So here we've worked on this. We've tested this transaction, for example, in our dev environment. We've tested it. And then when we're done, we can choose to just push it right to our production environment once we feel good about it. And again, no hopping back and forth between test and prod environment studios to refresh or update application versions. So some takeaways. As with any go live of any kind of software, there's no way to over communicate the coming changes. As much as we tried, we still received some questions for usernames, password. We had users trying to go to the old application, the old URL, trying to use they would get to the new application and they would try to use their old username and password. So there's a lot of user errors or user difficulties, but there's no way to over communicate the changes that are coming and what to expect to your users, especially with a larger user base like we had, the 65 to 70 users. The one thing that we've struggled with a bit is that users get access to an entire application package. There's not a way to grant access to an individual app within a package. So I've included an example here. We have our expense application package where we can create our own expense, confirm our own expense. But when I've confirmed an expense, I want that to go off to my supervisor for him to be able to approve that so I can get paid for it. So we've had to break apart the expense approvals into a separate application package, because if we grant the expense package to all our users and we put the approvals inside of that package, I would have the transaction to approve expenses, which I don't necessarily need if I don't have someone that's reporting to me. So that's one challenge that we've run into, is the need to break out, even though expense approvals is similar and should, in my opinion, fall in the same app package with expenses. It needs to be its own just for permission reasons. But some of the improvements I just want to highlight. I talked about the application deployment process where you can easily move it from dev, test, prod all within the same screen. All of those environments are part of the same hub, so easier to share connector information or translate that across each environment. The Flow Studio Designer can be launched directly from the hub, so it's still an application that's installed on your computer, but you don't need to go and find it. You can just go to your Flow hub and launch the designer right from there. Again, once users sign in and complete their MFA, they have immediate access to the platform, so they're not waiting for their device to be approved. They don't have to wait on IT. They as soon as they're set up and registered, they're in and able to start doing the work that they need to. And then another one that I hadn't highlighted yet: seeded flows or inbox can be tested without being deployed. I think when Paul at Novacura reached out to us about asking if we wanted to be a beta customer for Flow Connect, and he mentioned this was kind of the thing that sold me on it. We have a few inboxes, and we always had to obviously publish or commit them and then test them out. So being able to test these seeded flows and inboxes without deploying them, that was very important to us. So some of our future plans, kind of post go live, we've added 13 new applications already that we've developed internally, and we're currently developing additional ones that will be used by a couple different vendors located here in the States. So what we're doing is we're producing bulk inventory at our facilities here, but then we want to package them in containers that we don't have the ability currently to do. So, for example, we're making supplemental gummies for pets and for humans, and we are going to put those in, say, 25-pound bulk bags, and we'll send those bulk bags to our vendor, who will put those in bottles for us, and they'll track the piece counts. So say, you get a bottle of vitamin C gummies and there's exactly 90 of them in there. We don't have the capability to do that. So we're sending the bulk to our vendor, and then we've basically built an application package that will act as a scaled down warehouse management system. So they'll use the Flow Connect web UI to receive inventory that we ship them, record material usage down to a lot batch level, track production or shop order receipts, and then they'll ship those customer orders out the door. So they'll do everything from receiving the bulk to getting it out the door to our customers for us. And that gives us real-time inventory levels, allows our financial team and our operations team to make quicker business decisions. So this is something that would have been very difficult for us to develop prior to moving to Flow Connect. And it happened at the perfect time for us, because we've been working on these transactions most of the summer, and we actually have somebody going down to Georgia in a couple of weeks here to present that to our vendor and kind of let them start using it. So I think that's about all I have. I've included some of my contact information here, and I think Lucas probably has that as well. If anybody's interested, please feel free to reach out with any questions. This is our first chance to be a part of a Novacura user conference, and I wish I could be there. We've always looked forward to the opportunity to be able to connect with other customers using Flow. It's obviously a very powerful and versatile tool, and we're always looking for new ways to utilize it. So if anybody has any questions or suggestions, anything you'd like to reach out for, I'm always open to email communication. And then one thing I want to touch on is, as I mentioned, we are a pretty heavy user of IFS. So if any of you are IFS users, we will be at the IFS Unleashed conference in October. So thank you again. I'm open to any questions if anybody has any.
So I'm here to be like a proxy between you and Drew, between Sweden and United States, if I can rephrase that. Any questions? Drew, don't think that it's something wrong. I think, and I must say that, I really, and we all really appreciate the way you presented it, because you not only touched the new functionalities and capabilities. As you can guys see, I hope you appreciated that this was not just marketing-driven presentation where we focus only on highlighting the new features and excitement about the new product. Drew, honestly, and I really appreciate that you were very open. You showed the migration path, the stages, and I really appreciate that you shared a lot of tips and tricks, things that sound like little details, but just imagine users have problems with two links. One is the old link that they have in their bookmarks to the link to the Flow Classic, and the other one is the new updated link to the new version of the product. And they were very brave in switching off Flow Classic at one day and switching immediately to the new version. You might have a different scenario, right, where you have like two versions running in parallel, and then you will do more seamless scenario, migrating user by user or app by app to a new version. Anyway, there might be problem with these links to two different separate versions of the product, and great that you mentioned that, because these things, like no others, are very helpful when you plan your own migration projects. So we are really helpful here. Again, anyone has a question? Our CEO has a question, actually. I'll repeat it to you.
So the coexistence between the Flow Classic and Flow Connect, how long was that period, and what was the triggering point for switching?
No, there was no, actually. I'll respond. So the question was about the period where these two versions of the product coexisted, but I guess it only coexisted on the test dev environment, and you switched the production at one moment, right?
Yeah, so we had everything in test and dev up until that May 20th date, so 1 week before our go live. So the day that we sent out the registration email to our users was also the day that we deployed all of our working versions from test to our production environment. So users were using the systems in parallel for 1 week from that May 20th to May 27th, and then on the 27th we cut off all of the Flow 6 users, and everybody was forced to move to Flow Connect. So that was where we had those 40% of users where they maybe tried to log in on that Monday or Tuesday, and they were unable to. They would send us an email, and that's where we directed them to the new app, the new the new web interface. So the systems ran in parallel for about a week while we called that I guess still the beta phase, even though we knew that the applications were fully functional at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there is one more question.
Anything on the user feedback? On the interface, the user feedback?
Did you collect any feedback from the end users? Yeah.
Sorry, what's that?
Yeah, once again, so did you collect any feedback from the end users regarding the new updated user interface?
We've had a couple, I would call them power users that we actually gave probably 5 or 10 users access prior to that May 20th date, even a week before that. So they were kind of the users that we determined we would get good feedback from, and sort of technical power users where they didn't just say, this doesn't work. They would say, well, I did this and I did this and I didn't really like that kind of thing. So we determined some power users, but we've not taken the time to gather feedback from our user group as a whole. We've sort of picked those same 5 or 10 users and just said, what do you think? And we've gotten overwhelming positive responses from everybody, not only from the updated interface, but we did take the time to add some new functionality in there. So the travel and expense app, for example, with Flow 6, we just kind of took the out of the box version, if you will. And we're just, here's how you create your expense. You take your receipts, you put it here, you confirm it, and that's kind of it. Now we've given them a new transaction with access to go back and be able to search through some of their old expenses, or be able to make changes to the existing ones in the system. So we've kind of sweetened it a bit as we move to Flow Connect by not only using the prettier interface that comes with the product, but adding some new functionality to the applications that were existing in Flow 6. That new functionality in Flow Connect just to make them enjoy it just a little more, I guess.
Hard move, I think. Did you mention that you actually started on 29th of May? You mentioned something like that, or
our initial project plan. I went back and looked at kind of our target dates there. Our initial project plan stated May 29th. That was Wednesday. I think it revolved around the United States had a Memorial Day, a national holiday on Monday, May 27th. So that kind of helped trigger our go live date because we're not in the office on that Monday. So we used an extra day to get all of our users disabled, and then the new user accounts created on that Monday when nobody was working. So the 29th, I think, had to do with that Monday being a federal holiday. But we went live on the 27th and our target was the 29th. So I counted as a win because we beat our go live date by 2 days.
I'm asking because I have a great summary, I think. Because on the 29th of May, 20 years ago, I got married. And I'm still on the same version, and she seems to be evergreen, which I also wish to KLN with Flow Connect. Thank you so much for the presentation.